Tonight we'll start with the citizens' request to speak about non-agenda items, and since we have, looks like 8, we'll just read all of them tonight, so you don't have to wait until the topic comes up. But we can just start with Kathy Roberts.
So I just have a very short little paragraph, and I want to, there, at the end, I just have 2 questions, okay? And I will come back. I'm coming back next month because I want to talk about another subject. But tonight, I've been thinking about community and how important it is for community, especially with what's going on. So when I first started, my name is Kathy Roberts. I have been a teacher at North Hudson and Willow River. When Willow River went from the 4th Street School, and then we combined and we bused people in from around that had been to other schools. So we took over the middle school, and I have to say, this isn't in my notes, but it was a life-changing experience for me to be in this amazing school with a staff that was so committed to taking care of these kids. And it was a new school because the 4th Street was going to be torn down. So I feel like we built a community, and the social studies curriculum, when I got thinking about communities, had a unit on neighborhoods and building community. And that is what I'm thinking about now, as 2 schools are losing their community, and we're going to have to rebuild in 4 new schools. And it gives me a heartache to think that we got to figure out how to take care of these kids. We're dealing with kids that need help. Not just, I mean, I'm saying in this whole world that right now we're doing because they're afraid. And so this isn't in my notes, and I should have I should have read my notes, because my husband would say, you're off the subject, Kathy, which I do tend to ramble. But the staff and the parents of that school were so amazing that it was a life-changing experience for me to be there. And I'm just wondering, as a board and as a community, how are we going to step up and make these schools function and work? And I know the principals, I know a lot of the principals, and I think they'll do their best, but we got to think ahead and know how to take care of these kids, okay? So that's my background. I just want to make it a good transition, as I feel like we did in 1989 or 90, whatever year it was we came. So one of my questions is, number 1, is how much is the busing going to add to your budget? Okay, if you're doing more busing, obviously it's gotta happen. And number 2, how can we make this community and step up and help this transition? And I'm not talking about just the teachers. I'm talking about parents. I'm talking about other people, older people that want to help take care of these kids. That's all I'm wondering about. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Oh, yeah, we should try and keep, we usually do 2 minutes for comments. Andrea Schneider.
Hi, my name is Andrea Schneider. I live in Holton, Wisconsin. We've lived there for 33 years, I think, something like that. We've had kids in the Holton Elementary. We lived 6 years abroad, and then we came back when we had 2 graduate. Actually, we had an exchange student that also kind of went through graduation in 2013, and our youngest graduated in 2018. So we'll be talking about the closing, or primarily the sale, about Holton Elementary. So on October 8th, the vote was to close. November 10th, which was the next meeting, Brian Zeller came and presented, and there's people in Stillwater that have gone through the process of their school being sold and then opened up again, building a new school. Those people that left didn't go back. They made other choices. That means that school district lost people because of the choices the district made. They didn't come back. So Brian Zeller presented that one can go into closed session and talk strategies, and suddenly in January, there is this idea that, okay, what do we do if there is unsolicited offers coming out? Well, probably realtors out there saw the November meeting and said, hey, we'll put something forward. So now here we have February 9th, and we have an unsolicited offer, or talk about that. Going to jump to the U property, bought in 1959, 23 acres, 2001, 87 acres. In 2013, that property was still considered to be used for something. In the meantime, it was always we use it for this or for that. 2013, let's use it for, I think, a 6th, 7th grade or something like that. We're growing, we're building more. We have 2025, the smaller portion you're saying you're going to hold on because maybe it raises in the price. 10 years after 2013, you're still holding on to that property. And yet, why are you rushing to look into the sale of 14 acres of Holton and not giving that community time to figure something out more than just selling it? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Next up is Amy Walsh.
Hi, my name's Amy Walsh. I'm a part of a community group of parents and educators that is in the early planning stages of creating a charter school. The model of it will be based on the Finnish education system, really focused on outdoor education and experiential learning. I'm here tonight to request that the Hudson School District consider partnering with us as an in-district charter. I know that you are facing a lot of financial challenges and enrollment challenges, but I think that this could be mutually beneficial in attracting students from other districts, in attracting people who have not been well served by the traditional school system. And so I have two requests. One, to have us added formally to the agenda for you to consider that, and two, that you defer accepting any offers on Holton School until you have taken the time to thoroughly consider this. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next is Danielle Sampson.
At the December 15th meeting, the board established guiding principles for the reboundary process. These principles reflected what you valued as a group. They were meant to provide clarity, transparency, and shared expectations for how the options would be evaluated by the board. You defined transportation's guiding principle as minimizing time on the bus, using logical and safe group stops, and ensuring efficiency with both time and dollars. To the community's knowledge, there has not been any measurable transportation analysis for each of the boundary options. If transportation impacts can be modeled with routing software, these comparisons should be done across the options. It would be feasible and align with your own stated priorities. If it's more complex than that, then the complexity is exactly why it should be measured before selecting a boundary and hoping that the outcome works. I was told by the superintendent that the board doesn't have to vote tonight if more time is needed to make a sound decision. I recognize there's pressure with a timeline in this transition, but pressure should not determine an outcome. Boundary selection will set the trajectory for every operational decision that follows it. It's the most consequential step in the process right now. With the significant financial investment into MGT's analysis and the desire for these boundaries to last 10 to 12 years, taking the time to get this right matters. I've spoken to the issue of transportation, but there are other known unknowns as well. You may believe it's permissible to vote tonight, but is it beneficial? Is it constructive? Will it be accurate? Or is it simply expedient? I respectfully ask that you do not allow this to be a deadline-driven decision over a fully informed one, and that these impacts be clearly measured, compared, and shared before a final decision is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Rob Bearby.
Good evening. My name is Rob Barabee, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I live at 350 Bear Drive in Hudson Township, and I've emailed you all previously and want to thank you for the responses. My comment is regard to the school boundary options. I can't speak for others, but in my situation only, there's still options that don't extend to the end of roads on a couple of the options, the blue and the purple option specifically, and they stop at my neighbor's house. I'm hoping we can maybe extend that to the end of roads and streets as part of the options and being addressed rather than the middle of the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Here's this address. Jeannie Castro?
Hi, my name is Jeannie Castro and I reside at 1806 Willow Drive. As a candidate for school board, I've done my research and spoken with parents, teachers, and listened to kids. By definition, the school board members make decisions about curriculum, school buildings, and annual budgets by consulting with parents, teachers, and the superintendent. One parent I spoke to said they didn't want another levy and were concerned by selling Holton and Willow, and that would happen. A grandparent in the district said the safety of the students would be at risk if the school buildings were for sale. Another parent is concerned about 4K not fitting into the schools in this 4-school district program. They would like to see comparisons of the amount of money it would take to keep the schools versus the amount to build a new school. Another community member voiced a negative opinion about having condos in their vintage neighborhood. And it would be better served as a community center. Board member Aaron said it was best that we need to get the opinions of our parents, teachers, and students before we make decisions to sell our school or schools. Board members are entrusted with making sound decisions based on the concerns and ideas of parents, teachers, and students of our community. They are entrusted with this responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Next, Haley Smith.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name's Haley. I have 4 kids in elementary school this year, and I will next year as well, so I have a lot of personal investment in the boundary lines. There are many areas I noted east of exit 4 that have a lot of student decline over the next few years, so I would like you to consider making County Road N as a boundary line between Hudson Prairie and Rivercrest. The blue option, the green or blue, shows that as a boundary line, but the blue option also shows better numbers for capacity for all the schools now and in the years coming. So yeah, I'd like to thank you for this time and your consideration of that. And excuse me if this isn't allowed, but Mrs. Roberts was my 2nd grade teacher when I had to move from EP Rock to Willow River, and I feel like this is just God putting her here, where she did an excellent job transitioning her students to a new school. So thank you, Mrs. Roberts.
Thank you. Here's her address. Jan Gavin.
Good evening, I'm Jan Gavin, and I am a resident of the Hudson School District, and I am here on behalf of our community. I'm a community member and a taxpayer. And I'd just like to remind you that when you do sell the buildings if that's what you're going to do, that you do it in a very professional way, that you get some market analysis, that you consider, the proper way to go about that you open it up to all kinds of people who may have an interest in buying that property before you even consider, or another person coming with an unsolicited offer. You owe it to all of us who have paid taxes all these years to get the very best price that you can. And so you need to slow down, I believe, and take your time and do it right. Secondly, with the boundary redraws, is there a consideration for fifth grade kids to be able to stay in their current school? I think this is really important for them. If they could stay in their school, next year they'll be in the middle school. How fair is it to have them move as fifth graders and move as sixth graders? I just think that's really, in a way, cruel to them. So if that's a possibility, or at least if boundary exceptions were allowed for those families who feel that their student needs to stay in their current building. That's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, that brings that section to a close, and we will move on to reports. We'll start with the 2024-2025 audit report, executive summary.
So this is Jonathan Sherwood. He is from Clifton Larson, and he's going to give you a summary of our recent audit from last fiscal year.
Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Jonathan Sherwood. I'm a principal with Clifton Larson Allen. My responsibilities is taking responsibility essentially of the entire 82-page audit report that we issue, making sure all the facts, figures, disclosures are all within GASB standards, and then obviously help coordinating field work throughout the entire auditing process. So I want to thank you for having me here this evening, and I definitely want to thank the finance department, Bonnie, the rest of your staff, as well as all the various department heads that we interact with throughout the course of our audit. There was obviously some turnover in your finance department this year, and working through that can always be a challenge, but we're very happy to report that there was essentially no change in the overall process, just a few hiccups along the way that we had to work through on some administrative details. So the facts and figures and basically the content of my report isn't going to be very much changed from years past if you've heard my spiel in the past. So again, I just want to thank you all for all of your efforts and the additional work that preparing for and completing an audit can cause at times. So just to dive into, again, I'm going to focus all my comments on a 2-page audit summary here, notations, spare you the details of the 82 full-page audit report. But I do encourage you, if there's any specific follow-up questions, I have it here in front of me, but there are some definitely good things in there as well. So to start off here, the first item I'll go over is just some administrative things here. Number one is being our auditor's report or the audit opinion. So out of, again, the 82-page audit report, the only thing that CLA technically owns, quote unquote, within this is our auditor's opinion. It's our third-party independent auditor opinion over, the amounts and disclosures within. We issue what's known as an unmodified, also known as a clean opinion. Basically means that these audited numbers can be readily relied upon to make any financial decisions. So it's free of material misstatements or any other types of errors that we're placing over our opinion over these financial statements. Our audit is conducted with the government accounting and auditing standards, as well as we're making sure that all of, again, the form and content is in accordance with the GASB accounting standards. As part of our audit, we also issue what's known as a management letter that takes a look at the entire internal control structure of the district. And if there's any items in there that would be raising to a level that we would need to bring them up at a meeting such as this, it would be all included in the management letter. Out of the 50-plus school districts that CLA does here in West Central Wisconsin geography, the vast majority of them have at least 2, possibly 3 different findings that are usually talked about at this part of a presentation. Happy to report that due to the measures that you've taken as a district, there are actually no findings that we need to actually disclose to you.
Mr. President, sorry. Could you just explain what internal controls are? I have a pretty good idea, like the processes and stuff, but it
Right.
would be helpful.
In more plain nomenclature for most people, it's just exactly what you're saying. It's your policies and procedures, cash handling policies, capital asset purchases, all the various aspects of your accounting system as well, in terms of making sure that you have proper approvals for things. Things go through a few layers of approval before the actual purchases get made. On the other side of things, it's also making sure that like bank statements are reconciled on time, and if there's any questions or any lingering issues there, that they're resolved, prior to your auditor coming in the door saying, why is this not looking, how it should. That help?
Yes.
Okay. So again, the management letter comments, we have nothing here further to discuss for you. And then also part of our audit, the school district receives federal and state funding, and as certain amounts of those specific funding sources come in, it triggers what's known as a federal single audit or a state single audit. So you are obviously triggering those, and it's known as a compliance audit, so it's over specific federal programs and state programs. So we are required by accounting standards to take a look at a few of those programs, and again, happy to report there's no compliance issues to report on any of the projects that or programs that we took that we audited during our time. Also, as part of our work with the district, we also make sure that any DPI filings are done in a timely manner. So the 1506 AC annual reports and the various reporting by the district is all in compliance with DPI. As well as then the last final reporting that we have to do to the federal government is a federal data collection form to make sure all those federal funds are reported back appropriately. All of that lovely state and federal reporting has been made back to those various agencies. To dive into here, item number 2 is just your general fund. And when I speak to general funds, this includes both Fund 10 and your Fund 27, special education. All of these numbers are all rolled into one here for you underneath this item number 2. So looking at this is a balance sheet snap in time as of 6/30, various year ends here. It's a 5-year summary, and I use this as just a place that if there's any items that are really jumping off the page, it usually is a good jumping off point here to make a few commentary for you. Within your balance sheet, there really isn't a ton there that's too much of a variance from one year to another. So instantly I can jump down to those 3 highlighted rows there for you. One being a component of your balance sheet, or of your fund balance. Your fund balance is, again, your reserves that are used to meet future obligations. So you've got your fund balance section as opposed to your total expenditures for the year, and we calculate what's known as a % of unassigned fund balance to general fund expenditures. Basically, in your reserves that are not earmarked or set aside or restricted for any other use, they are strictly meant to use for any subsequent fiscal periods or any subsequent uses that are not restricted by any other sources. So the unassigned, percentage of unassigned fund balance is a good general measuring stick, so to speak, so you can compare how is the school district of Hudson doing, how do we compare to another district within our area. And then you do have a district policy that's laid out of what your minimum fund balance policy or minimum fund balance ratio should be. The fund balance policy for the district is anywhere between 25 and 30%. And from an outside independent auditor perspective, we usually recommend districts to be at a minimum 25 to 33% of unassigned fund balance. So essentially, that's how much of your district operations could you fund strictly out of your unassigned needs, anywhere from, about 3 months out of the year before you take in any other additional monies from subsequent tax years or state, federal sources. So one of the benefits of having a fiscally healthy fund balance, as you're seeing in the 2025 column, you're currently at 44.4%. So one of the benefit, or there's a multitude of different reasons of why you would want to strive for that type of goal for you. Number one is to address the cash flow needs of the district. Obviously, when you have property tax collections that are concentrated into specific periods of time of the year, there's different times where you're a little bit more cash strapped, for a lack of a better way of saying it. Obviously, with a fiscally healthy fund balance as you have, you completely avoid short-term borrowing, which is a very real scenario that a lot of districts in the area actually have to do. So you obviously reduce any interest expense there. Obviously, then it does allow you to meet any unanticipated funding fluctuations throughout the year, dealing with any other state budget type questions that aren't really necessarily settled, you can have those internal discussions here set forth for you as well. Then lastly, one of the bigger benefits is it does also allow you to have some beneficial borrowing terms if you would ever have to get to that level. Improved credit ratings obviously leads to reduced borrowing costs at that point. And then lastly is more or less a self-financing option for any capital projects. So you wouldn't obviously, you could completely avoid some borrowing needs because you could self-finance some of those discussions. So overall, for the general fund and the general health of the school district of Hudson here, you're fiscally healthy. There would be no major red flags or concerns from an audit perspective over your 2025 fiscal results. Any questions on the general fund before I dive into some of the other items here for you?
I have a quick question. How does, when we are levying for capital campaigns, how does that play into cash and investments and just the fluctuation that you see over the years in there?
So there's a couple of different ways that you're going to have capital projects. One will be an item here on page 2, which you'd specifically borrow for, and all of those capital expenditures are recorded specifically in a capital projects fund. Other items that are outside the scope of like a referendum dollars, other those, you know, repair and maintenance and those types of things are usually budgeted for directly in your general fund, in Fund 10. And then it's either done, you know, essentially it's which pot of money, which funding source is going to, you know, essentially pay for those types of items. So some of those would be supported by a grant, which is kind of falling out of favor in recent years, just because some of that federal money is no longer available. Think ARPA dollars or some of those COVID funding. Otherwise, it's going to be, you know, those Fund 10 expenditures are primarily funded and financed with direct levy dollars versus in your capital projects funds, which I'll, you know, go into a little bit further detail here in a minute. Those are all referendum dollars, which is long-term borrowings.
Gotcha. Sorry to jump the gun.
No, that's right.
On the next page.
It sets me up well.
Ryan?
Thanks.
Thank you. I've got a question. I don't know if it would be you or Bonnie, but looking at the unassigned fund balance, it grew between the end of fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25. And I'm just curious, kind of what's the driver of that?
Well, I can add some color, and then if I need, I can tag Bonnie in here as well for us. So the overall budget for 2025, you know, obviously we have an adopted budget here. And without going too much into the weeds of exactly, you know, further complicating some of the full-on disclosure, Bonnie can help me out here in a minute too. The 2025 budget was adopted to have a purposeful spend down. So we were going to intentionally spend down some fund balance in total. So the line that I'll actually direct your attention to is the committed long-term facilities plan. You came into the year at about $15 million, and there was a very conscious spend down of those dollar amounts to help finish off the various projects around here, referendum supported as well. So that's why that number specifically did decrease as much as it did. And then kind of the offset is we freed up some of those resources, you can think of it in that way. We freed up some of those assigned dollar amounts that we said we were gonna have this set aside for it. And that's where obviously a lot of that funding then went away from. And then obviously in your unassigned line then, just you know how the equation essentially works, that the unassigned fund balance actually increased because we were using some of those other restricted sources or assigned sources previously. Does that help? Any other color for you? All right, perfect. Then to direct my attention onto page 2 for us. Item number 3 are your special revenue funds. A special revenue fund basically means that there's restricted revenue sources that, you know, thou shalt revenue must be used for these specific purposes. So your education trust, that's your scholarships, your gifts, your donations, those are donor restrictions, must be used for those purposes. Your food service fund or Fund 50, obviously any resources in there are meant to run the food service program. And then lastly is your education and recreation fund. So those are your Fund 80s. So between a special revenue fund, the only comments that I normally make from an audit perspective is, are we seeing a significant decline in resources? That just means that your revenues that you're bringing in there, your charges for service, aren't meeting what your revenue or your expenditures are. So my normal comment is if I see that trend, you need to increase your prices and or decrease your expenses. Those are, the only really two levers that you can pull in your special revenue funds. You can see here in 24 and 25, your overall funding levels is pretty steady. I would consider it steady there. So there really isn't much commentary I'll add for you on your special revenue funds. In your debt service fund, item number 4, GASB requires all principal and interest payments to be reported separately in a debt service fund. At the end of the year, you have just over $8.3 million in set-asides or reserves, which will be used to meet future principal and interest payments. Again, due to kind of the levy of when those debt service payments are due versus when the payments are made, we have a carryover from one year to the next. During 2025, the district paid just over $5 million in principal and just over $3.1 million in interest during the year. Item number 5 are your capital projects funds. There's 2 different capital projects funds that we track and report on. The first being the site expansion and remodel capital project fund that Ms. Powers, you were describing your referendum dollars. So that's where all of that capital project activity is going to be recorded. And you can clearly see that, in 2023 is when the big referendum hit and the big borrowing hit. And then through 2025, we're having a spend down. And basically in 2025, and now obviously a little bit of carryover yet in 2026, that entire project should hopefully, in my eyes, be completely closed out and just save us a little bit of reporting on going forward. But obviously all of the referendum activity was reported in that standalone Fund 49. The other long-term capital projects fund has been just funded through various years. That's a DPI requirement just to basically fund that in order to use that as a budgetary or a levy mechanism, which the district has not chosen to use at this point. Again, it's DPI requirements that go in there, and it basically starts a time clock of when you can actually fund it, and it has some advantages and disadvantages when it comes to aidable costs for the district.
Can I just interject on that one? So we started, it's called Fund 46. We started it, 5-6 years ago. We don't typically use Fund 46 because we're a negatively aided district when it comes to tertiary aid. And so what it does allow districts that aren't negatively aided is they put, instead of building up their fund balance, they put it into Fund 46. So then what ends up happening is they actually get aid on it. So the state gives them money to put in, and then when they do spend it, they can spend it on capital projects and things like that. For us, for every dollar we put in there, cost us $1.20 in state aid. So we don't put money in there. That's why we don't really use Fund 46. We put $1,000 in there about 6 years ago just to get the clock going, like a Roth IRA kind of thing. But that's why other districts you might see with much smaller fund balances and much higher Fund 46, that's the difference between us and them, to give you a little kind of backstory over the last 6 years.
Item number 6 then for you is your long-term obligations. This is all of the long-term debt and obligations set aside that, in its entirety. The state of Wisconsin has a statute that states that districts can only use about 10% of all equalized value within the school district boundaries. For a school district, it is very, very unlikely that you would ever even approach the state's statute limitation. Typically, most districts, when I would consider them highly leveraged or have a lot of debt out there, it's usually directly after a large issuance or for a referendum, somewhere between the 40 to 50% limit is when you're going to really start saying, okay, you've got a lot of debt out there. Clearly, you have a capital project out there, and now it's going to take a number of years to start paying off that debt and freeing up some of that capacity. So with you're sitting here at just about 10.6% of your limit being used, you do have the ability. You do have some leverage capability there for you. So some debt issuance is potential there in order to still consider you under leveraged or not extending yourselves too long there. In terms of the debt that is outstanding, you've got. What is this, about $6.8 million that's going to start falling off through 2027. That's, I believe, 2 separate debt issuances there. You've got one debt issuance that's good through 2036. The total outstanding debt on that's about $52 million. And then the longest debt out there it's good through 2043, and there is about $19.8 million left on that outstanding bond. Without getting too much into the weeds, my comments went here a little bit longer than they normally do. In that other long-term obligation debt section, there are a couple of numbers that are gonna kind of swing one way or the other. Just know for discussion purposes that that's not necessarily real dollars that you have to pay out on an annual budgetary basis. Those are accounting transactions that due to, hey, you're involved with the WRS system, or you have OPEB liabilities that aren't funded through the trust. Those are all verified, balances within your audit report. There's 7, 9, 10 pages of your note disclosures that can give you a lot more detail there if you have any specific questions. And then the other specific one that is going to change drastically in the 2025 column is your compensated absences. Your policies, handbooks, nothing changed. All that changed was your auditor said, hey, GASB 101, it was a new standard or new statement that came out and required us to measure things a little bit differently than we have in the past. So that's why specifically that line has increased. So we can blame GASB on that one. At that point, I'm happy to answer or address any other questions you might have. Otherwise, that's all I have for you.
Mr. President, I just want to say thank you for coming and speaking about this, and huge thank you to Bonnie and her team, who, you're rock stars. I mean, these unmodified audits year after year. Thank you for everything that you do.
Okay. Nothing else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yep. Next up on the agenda is community engagement in high school business classes, and that's Shannon.
It's me. Yeah, so we've got some high school staff members here to talk about the cool things that they're doing at the high school level to engage community members in their business classes. I'll let them introduce themselves before they give us their presentation.
Just want to press the button on the thing. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Carrie Hentz. I'm a business teacher at Hudson High School, and Ashley Blum is next to me. She is also a business teacher. And we're here to share the ways that we connect our students with business and community partnerships between our classroom, field trips, guest speakers, and different projects that we run throughout our school.
So in our department, there's actually 4 of us. We're the first there, and then we added Brett Weinferter and Emily Sommerfeld. Together, we offer a variety of classes to students ranging in many business topics, and a lot of the classes that we offer are dual credit through Northwood Tech, so our students earn credit with us, and then also at the technical college as well, that they can roll over wherever they plan on pursuing their future education.
So as far as our business courses go, we have a variety of marketing, business, and technology courses. So students are able to, throughout the courses, look at different career paths and see opportunities that are out there for them within their future. So on the left-hand side of the slide here, this is a bulleted list of examples of guest speakers that we've brought in to share information with our students about careers across graphic design, across being a franchise owner of a business, sports and entertainment industry. In the entrepreneurship course, this school year we have 4 sections of entrepreneurship, and students actually move through creating a business plan, and we bring in a variety of guest speakers. We also run a roundtable opportunity where students, after writing their business plan, they can share their ideas, and the business person at the roundtable can provide feedback and information. So it's this idea of connecting students to real world business and industry professionals and giving them an opportunity to seek feedback and gain inspiration from community members. Throughout entrepreneurship, we also take part in reading the book Fish, which is based out of Seattle, and it's a story of a business that is actually running their organization in a way that other businesses and companies really see as a model. So the students read the book, and then we bring in Wisconsin Credit Union, which is a local business that also uses that same philosophy to train employees and create just a workplace that people want to be a part of and experience fun and this idea of being present and having fun and enjoying what you do on the job. So the students read the book, and then we take part in a fish toss and just connect with the business professionals. In digital marketing, currently we have 3 sections of digital marketing this semester, and this is an opportunity for students to learn about marketing strategies and connect back to local businesses. So working through projects where students create advertisements and they actually share out the advertisements with local business people, receive feedback. Projects also include like redesigning or recreating menus for restaurants. So it's this idea of connecting students in the collaboration piece where they receive feedback, but also it's real world projects, and it just brings that true like accountability and relevance to their learning. Within the school store, we have a retail, the Raider School Store course, and then we also have a service-based course, which is the Common Grounds. And students, again, it's this idea of strengthening the tie with service projects and gaining that real-world professional experience through projects. So on the left-hand side, you can see an image of a student holding up her design. So this is her project that really came to life through a service project, and in this case she designed, had to basically sell her ideas to the students, and the students voted on, yes, let's move forward with this service-based project. That product was sold in the school store, and proceeds went back to a nonprofit organization. So the real world project-based is really our focus within the store classes. And the round table conversations, as I mentioned earlier, with entrepreneurship and with some of our business courses, it's providing that opportunity for business individuals to come into our classroom and network with our students and provide that valuable feedback. So as mentioned, it provides students with an opportunity to share ideas and develop their skills in communication, opportunities for business professionals in our community to connect with our students in the business classes to really provide those really great, meaningful experiences. This is another photo of how this round table all plays out. The test drive is an event that we have run through 2 different times within the last couple of school years. So students in personal finance, they move through a reality experience where they choose a career and they're provided with industry averages for income, and then they move through stations. And last year when we ran this event, we had over 200 students involved in the experience, and we had over 80 business volunteers that came in, and the students moved through the stations, and again were able to make decisions and see how their decisions really impacted their bottom line, and move through the whole experience through a 90-minute simulation. So it was meant to be a real life scenario where they could see, okay, how expensive is life, and move through and make decisions based on that through the reality fair. This is something that we are going to run again in May. It'll happen the 3rd week in May, so you'll see information about that in the future, and then a request if anyone is interested in joining us.
I just have to add, shouldn't that be a requirement? I would like to see it be a requirement.
The test drive?
Yes.
Well, the good news is that personal finance is now required, so between personal finance and economics, we will pull everyone involved in personal finance throughout the school year, so, yeah. And then the last piece I will share before I hand it over to Ashley here is beyond the classroom, it's field trips. So last spring, the digital marketing class visited Fallon Advertising in downtown Minneapolis, and throughout the semester, we learn about principles of design, and we learn about careers within digital marketing to actually take them out of the classroom and experience a tour of an ad agency and learn about how companies take client work or really requests and turn it into real projects and advertisements that they actually see. It's pretty powerful. So this idea that it opens up their eyes to career paths, connects what they learn in the classroom, just to gain the broader perspective. So we also took a field trip to the Business and Innovation Center. And this was an opportunity for students in business courses to learn about opportunities in our community that are available for students interested in entrepreneurship and starting their own business. Within that field trip, we It was a half-day field trip, and we were able to bring the students in 2 different school buses to the Business and Innovation Center, Stryker Brands, and then Buddy's Bakery last spring. So we were able to hear from a bigger business company and then also small local companies.
And then the other thing that we really like to think about is how can we connect what we're teaching in class with our students to what's happening in the real world. And we were coming up with this idea of what can we do to get more community involvement, and that's where Young Minds Experience Voices has come kind of to fruition. So we ran it for 2 years now. We'll run it again this summer, or the end of the school year. And the idea behind it is to bring in community members that are connected with what our students are learning about in the classroom as a way to help them kind of solidify and kind of comprehend how what we teach in the classroom directly relates to what they're learning in the business world. And from the pictures here, you can see we have all of our students in our classes listening to these speakers come in and kind of share about their experiences and really kind of help connect that information back. And then I think if you go to the next slide, we've got one quote here from a student talking about what her big takeaway was. We have lots of different businesses come in. We have nonprofits like Coco's Heart. We have franchises. We've had lots of small businesses come in. I'm trying to think what else, like those are the, yeah, okay. And then if you go on to our next slide, this is another way that we connect back with the community. So we have a DECA chapter. As you can see, it's been growing since 2023. We have increased membership up to 80%. Brett Weinferter and Emily Sommerfeld do a great job with that. They have some of their highlights from their competitions. So just last month, they went to districts and they did fantastic. They had 28 students that were able to qualify for state. And then in the end of this month, they're going to be traveling to Lake Geneva to compete there. But they also do trick or can, so they collect goods to give to the community. We kind of tie that in with Stuff a Trunk. And then if we go on to our last slide, this was a student we polled last year, and we just said, hey, let us know about this Young Minds Experience Voices. Like, what does it mean for you? I'm not going to read the whole thing because you did a fantastic job writing that there. But it really helped us solidify and understand why it's so important that as a business department, we provide these opportunities for students to hear from community members and really help them see that connection.
Mr. President?
Maria.
First, I wanted to say thank you to both of you for a great presentation and for all that you do for our students. I've seen a few of these things in action at the high school, and you guys do a really great job. The test drive, that is a fun event. I've seen it firsthand, and it's invaluable. It's really tangible kind of stuff the kids have to wrestle with. So as much as you can keep that alive, it's a great partnership with the Royal Credit Union. And this summer, we took a family vacation to Seattle, and we saw the Pike Place Fish Market. So it's kind of cool to see the connect back here and what you guys are doing. They truly are like people who are having fun in their business and kind of bringing joy not only to each other, but to the patrons that they serve. And it's just, it's a fun business to watch. So thank you for highlighting that for our students.
Absolutely. Mr. President? This is an amazing program. Every time a group of teachers come in, I'm like, wow, I'm just always so impressed at the high level of learning and teaching and engagement that you are getting and you're doing. I always say, especially when Leslie Bliskart, whatever her name is, thank you. I'm like, I want to be in high school again because it's amazing. The one thing I am a spouse of an accountant, a CPA. So there you go. I would say when he retires, I'm going to take the CPA exam. One thing that I'm just a little thinking ahead, and I know their concerns in that field, is getting people to go into accounting and finance. And we had talked years ago about, because we had the STEM Academy and Healthcare Academy, do we need a business academy? And it seems like we're doing everything and opening it up to every student. But I'm wondering if there's, number one, if there's more we can do with finance and accounting. And then the follow through of what do you see when kids are really pumped up and they're in DECA and they're doing all these cool things? What do you see? Do you see like they're very well prepared for college life and a business major and that kind of thing? Like what are your thoughts on those two different things? If you have a comment.
I'll let you jump in with the accounting question. And I'll
Thank you for letting me go first. Yes. I really appreciate that. I happen to primarily be the person who teaches accounting. It's something I'm very passionate about, and it's really exciting for me when I have those kids that are super excited. I'm happy to say that this year is the first year here at Hudson that we are actually running Financial Accounting 1B as a legit class where students are there. They are my I am there to help them directly. I wish it was something that grew more, but if we could just get those like bean counters to come join me, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I was wondering that as well. It's like there's so many different, I mean, we're such a bedroom community, and it's great that we have all these local businesses that are super cool and many different sizes, but can we get people who are like commuters, you know, and they work at, you know, a Fortune 500 company? Because it's just the opportunities are different, you know? But I mean, I love what you're doing.
We were fortunate. Last year we had Target come and speak. Who else? We had someone else, I thought. So we are getting a few people from Minnesota, from the larger communities, to come in. But definitely accounting is an area that we are going to need people to fill, and connecting that with students is kind of the struggle right now. A lot of students take the first part, but then from the high school perspective, again, this is the first year we're running it as a full class. Usually it's a few concentrators that take it independent study style. So I definitely, I understand your point, and I agree that it's something we could definitely look at growing, you know. It would be awesome. I would love that.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that we're so close to a large urban area with so many large corporations that give those opportunities up. So we certainly appreciate that and use it as much as we can. So, but great report. Does anybody else have anything? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. The second part of your question, as you were asking the question, there were two students that came to mind. One that's currently I believe she's a sophomore at UW Eau Claire. She graduated with 18 college credits. Her major was business, and she jumped in with, a whole semester under her belt with business-related courses. Her mom is a substitute teacher at our high school, and she specifically reached out to let us know that her daughter felt very prepared, and that gave us a really nice compliment of how we prepared her for that business degree at UW Eau Claire. The second student that came to mind, she is currently at UW Stout, majoring in graphic communications, and she was one of the students in the photo at the Fallon Advertising on the field trip. So I think just providing those opportunities, opening the students' eyes to careers. Yeah, it just, I also want to thank, we have such an amazing administration, very supportive. Mike has been incredibly supportive of our ideas to throw fish and to bring in the test drive event and to have the last 2 days of school to really set up our classrooms as a platform for business people to come in. So I feel like we've, on a number of occasions, you know, brought across these ideas to Mike, and he's just like, all right, I trust you guys, and I think we can make this work. So, yeah.
Great job. Great teamwork.
Yep. Excellent report. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Next, we have 4K in kindergarten registration with Nick.
Yes, so just a reminder that our 4K in kindergarten registration will be coming up on March 10th. It's just a link to our website that has all the information. It's at we hosted at Hudson Prairie Elementary School. You don't have to be there in person, but if you are there in person, there'll be people there to answer questions, whether related to transportation or school-age care or any of those other different questions that you may have. So just wanted to make sure we put that out there and remind people. Typically, you know, we do this about right now, so we're about a month a little bit later than where we would typically be. But you know, one of the questions that people want to know is, I'm going to sign up for 4K or for elementary school, where's my kid going to go? And for us to actually take that registration, we have to give them an entity to register. So we'll continue to kind of work through that. The next item I had on there report-wise is just a reminder that there is a school board election, primary election coming up on February 17th. So that is a week from tomorrow. Candidates are listed on our website there as they will appear on the ballot. The primary election is on the 17th. The regular election and the regular spring election is on the 7th of April. So if people are wondering where they vote or any questions or comments or things like that that they may have, they can always contact their local municipal office, whether it be a township, the city, or the village, to find that out. So there's also information on the school board candidate information Tim has on our website as well. So that's all I had for those two reports.
Okay, no questions. Moving on to topics of discussion and possible action. We'll start with consent items for items 1 through 3. If someone would like to comment or make a motion.
Mr. President,
Megan?
I make a motion to approve, for approval of the consent items, and that the chief financial and operations officer be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $758,990.63.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Second from Kate. All those approve, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to legislative advocacy on special education funding. So that would be,
This would be, I think Megan did a couple draft letters. You know, the board has talked about this in the past, about sending letters to both to the governor and then to our two legislators, Senator Staffschultz and Representative Zimmerman. And so she has the drafts of those letters so that the board can kind of take a look. And if the board wants to send those along, you give us the direction and we'll get those printed and sent off. So I'll turn it over to Megan and she can kind of talk through her letters.
Yeah, the letters, the governor, and then the one to Senator Staffschultz and Representative Zimmerman, they're almost exactly the same, except for the one to our rep and senator says, thank you for meeting with us last spring, because he came to meet with us. I guess, did the governor come visit?
governor was here.
We should say thank you for coming to visit. So that would be something to add in. I missed that day. But I went, WASB had sent us an email. I'm sure everybody got it. You might not have opened it because we do get a lot of WASB emails. But that talked about what the current state surplus is, what the projected cost is of funding the 45%. So the facts were pulled from WASB's, the data WASB provided. And then I got numbers from Bonnie on the cost of special ed, the loss in funding for special ed in terms of the percentage reimbursement, which is still an estimate at this point, shockingly. I don't envy your job, Bonnie. And how much we transferred from the general fund to special ed last year.
Mr. President.
Aaron, or Maria, then Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you for drafting these, Megan. I appreciated reading through them this morning. I thought it was a nice, you covered a lot of ground and content in this and really emphasizing kind of the impact to our district, which is super helpful to outline. The only suggestion that I have for a potential edit is we talk about, I forget what paragraph it's in here. We understand concerns about property taxes. We share those concerns as individuals. Oh, you made it. And elected officials. Look at you. All right. Never mind then. Perfect.
Aaron?
Thank you.
I would actually like to see it invite them back to speak with us.
Oh, yeah.
If you could add something like that, just an open invitation.
Great idea.
I think that's a great idea. I will add that in.
I mean, the governor isn't gonna probably come back.
No,
But our.
Not
our
this
lo-
one.
Not this one, at
Yes.
least. I mean, somebody, but the local legislatures, I think it might be helpful.
Yep.
And they might be able to shed some light and perspective on why it was like that or what we can be doing differently.
That's a great idea.
Did Shannon and Rob, they were both here at the last time, or was it just Shannon the last time? It was both, yeah, okay, yeah. Didn't know if Shannon had come again since then, but I guess not. Any other input on that? If not, oh,
Bob?
go ahead, Kate.
Last time we talked about this, we talked about sending something as well to WASB on what they should be focusing on, in our opinion, as a board, because their job is to do a lot of lobbying for us, and I've been a little bit critical of how much I'm seeing happening there. So I think it would be a good idea to also send them a letter, if you all agree. asking them to really pinpoint what they're doing.
I think that we
for
talked
us.
about narrowing focus instead of having, 20 things, let's pick 3, 2.
Is that something we would like on an agenda for a future board meeting to discuss openly then? Maybe start thinking about what you would want?
I think that's a good idea. It seems like from their emails that they're focused on this special ed right now, because they keep sending these action alerts on special ed funding, but then they have their big book. So it's hard for me to understand, like, do they have this big policy book because some of these are nice to have and that it's like a wish list? But it seems like during budget years, they're usually focused on 1 or 2 things. But it's hard to tell.
I think for the committee, we discussed that, about that it all comes down to a narrowed focus and you have to pick what you want. So us reaching out as a school board, absolutely. And again, like I mentioned, I think at one of the last meetings, that there's a backlog of lobbying efforts, things that are sitting out there that, I even talked about, can we, how often do you review these and say, okay, what falls off? And keep the focus on the future and now. So with that, with the other letters or the other emails as well, should we approve them at like the work session because you still need some information from Bonnie? Or
No, I have the information from Bonnie, so I don't know if people want to approve the way it's worded, like, we hope you'll come back and meet with us, or if people feel okay with it.
Could we just kind of entrust Megan to make the edits that, I think we've got it on tape if you need to go back and.
And just send a copy.
Yeah, the
maybe.
draft, I think, is
yeah,
in.
you could just send it out to us, in fact, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like you said, you got the video, but otherwise,
Yeah.
if you wanted to, send that, so.
Yeah.
So,
And then you would just send it via email to them, probably?
yep,
Yeah, okay, yeah, I can hop on that.
all good with that?
Mr. President, I just want to say thank you to Megan for taking the lead on this. This stuff really matters. The state is really, the way they've been, for lack of a better term, jerking us around on funding has been a challenge for us, and it has real consequences.
I think people are seeing this year especially, we got the 42 to 45 over the next 2% for special ed, and then to see how fast that just backed off the table. And, how it really could leave some districts that don't have, the credit rating we have or the financial stability we do have. And, the faster we can get the state moving in a direction to support schools, in an intelligent way, the better. So, agreed.
Mr. President,
Aaron.
could we, we always, as a board, we tend to go to WASB. Can we maybe have someone from WASB come here to us?
Was that to Nick? Is that something you've heard of before?
To discuss what, just to have more of a conversation instead of, I feel like sometimes when we write letters, maybe, I have no idea how many letters they receive, but I feel like they kind of fall on deaf ears and they just like, oh, another letter, great. Noted, but nothing really happens. I feel like seemings we solicit their services or use their services, that they kind of owe it to us to come and like talk to us and tell us what is really going on and how they can help us versus how we can help them.
Mr. President?
Yes, Kate.
I agree with you. I think it was maybe 2 years ago that I asked the same question, and they were extremely reluctant to come. They wanted us to fund their trip here. So you can see where my frustration has been. And for the community who maybe doesn't follow it all, our school district pays a yearly fee to have their services and for them to support us. So that has been very frustrating for me. So I think another ask is, I think that sounds like a great idea.
We should remind them that part. Might be necessary.
Well, and I wonder if maybe they'd just join us by Zoom too, even if they don't come in person, because driving from Madison or driving to Madison for us, it's a long haul, so.
For next
Don't we
session,
have
they
a rep in River Falls though that could come? Or that they don't locally, like anyone else?
Alan Totenhagen, he's on the policy and
Okay.
like me. but he's.
So we don't want him to come here.
Well,
if he's
would you
like
want me to come?
I totally.
We won't answer that question.
But yeah, I can certainly ask Alan about the best way to do this.
That would be great.
Because I think,
And Zoom, I think, is a great idea also.
I think having their policy director, or like their main lobbyist, or one of their key lobbyists meet with us and talk through it.
Put them in a four-square.
It'll be like the
multiples of
Brady
them.
Bunch, they'll be moving
Fine,
around.
I mean, but then we, that's a great way to do it without adding cost.
Yep. Okay, sounds good. Next is early college credit start. College now requests for summer school, or for summer 2026. So Shannon?
Yep, that's me.
Sorry, I butchered the hell out of that.
No, that's okay. So you're just getting kind of your first look at the submissions for early college credit program and the Start College Now. These requests are for this summer, the summer session of 2026, for you to just review, and then I'll be looking for approval at one of our next meetings so those students can get registered. All these requests have met the eligibility requirements, and at this time we have 3 students they're submitting requests for classes. They're requesting 9. That's a lot, but they don't typically get their first request. So it looks like a lot, but they kind of get overtaken by college students. So eventually they'll get what they want, but they meet all the requirements.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Shannon.
Yep.
Next up is tax credit discussion and possible action with Nick and Bonnie.
Yep, so this 179D tax deduction credit discussion, possible action. So our architect and our CM for the construction projects came to us and said there are energy tax credits that allow them, or energy tax deductions that allow them to reduce, their income, their deduction, right? That we cannot take advantage of because we are a nonprofit, we're a public entity, we don't pay federal income tax, we don't pay corporate taxes. So I had, one of the functions of this though is they can be assigned. So the school district can assign them to other people to use. And so I consulted with our attorney, who then kind of one of her associates in her office that specializes in construction contracts and this kind of stuff, is familiar with the 179D provisions. Said there's not an issue with this. This is something that a lot of school districts will do because you can't take advantage of them as a school district. So you can assign them to your contractors or architects, but I didn't want to assign any type of credits to anybody on behalf of the school district without the board saying, yes, we're okay with that. Essentially what Market and Johnson and Bray have asked for is they were going to split them 50-50. Those would be the 2 that would be eligible for it. We can't ask for anything in return. It's kind of one of those things where you can't sell tax deductions and things like that. However, we have heard that there are districts that do end up getting donations for their building trades departments and kids and things like that from companies that do these kind of things. Again, we would not ask for anything in return, but there's the real possibility that either one or both of these companies could be donating to programs within our school district as a thank you, but nothing that we would be able to arrange that way. So, because a lot of times people say, well, what's in it for the district? We for sure have to make sure that this is kind of a free and clear thing, so.
Is there any timeline concerns? I mean, we just have the buildings done. Projects are finished. There's still some things laying out there as far as warranty or whatever. Is it?
So this has nothing to do with their warranty, has nothing to do with their bills, it's just a totally separate program that they do for them. It's a, as I got back from the attorney, tax exempt entities such as school districts are not subject to federal income tax, so 179Ds would generally not provide or not be available for them. To address the issue, 179D provides the tax exempt entity which undertakes a project that would otherwise qualify for the 179D to allocate the deduction that it can't use to a for-profit designer of the energy efficient system or the contractor that installed it. So it really is a tax thing for them. It's nothing for us. But again, I don't want to assign tax deductions without the board taking action on that.
Brian?
Thanks, Mr. President. Nick, you may or may not know the answer to this, but to qualify for the tax credit, they have to meet certain standards.
Yes.
They're incentivized to do that, and so presumably we're seeing the benefit of more energy efficient construction.
Yep, so that's essentially what happens. So their deductions are based purely on the level of energy efficiency they achieved both with the design and the install. And so the next step would be is if we were to assign these tax deductions to them, they have to hire at their own cost auditor to go in and audit the plans and audit the actual savings that are happening. And they have to be able to prove that we're getting the savings that they said we would get in order for them to get the deductions. But that, again, is on their end. So that is the benefit for us to incentivize them to build and design energy efficient buildings, where for us, the operating cost then is less long-term.
So their audit that they're talking about, that's a third-party process?
Yes, it is a third-party process that comes in and does that audit. I think I have the name of the company that comes in. Whipfly.
Whipfly.
The Whipfly is the company that comes in and does it.
Good. Sorry.
No, I mean, this is just me. I think stuff like this is super janky, but, if ever wants to do that, it just is one of those things that as just a taxpayer, I feel like they're ours to use and nobody else should use them. And that's just kind of how I feel. I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. It does feel like a little bit of a quid pro quo,
Can I ask if we did anything this way? I mean, Rivercrest was a LEED certified school. Was this something that was back then, or, I mean, it's not related to right now necessarily, but did we do that then?
This is part of the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022.
Oh, okay, so Tracy's saying no, so.
Yeah.
Okay, Maria?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I need more information. I kind of hear a little bit about, pros and cons, and I think I just need a little bit more information to kind of provide a thoughtful, here's what I think. Is there some stuff we can get in writing? I mean, I certainly can do my own research on 179B, but if there's anything that Lori has in writing and kind of the process and all of that, it just would be super helpful to digest, and maybe we could talk about it again at a
Table it,
future.
bring it up at another
Yeah,
meeting.
table it and move
Perfect.
it to another one. Thanks.
Not a problem.
Okay, very good. Next will be overnight travel proposals. Shannon?
Yes, so I'll be looking for approval tonight for our overnight travel for spring and summer dates for the high school activities and athletics.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the overnight travel proposal as presented.
Second.
Second from Brian. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, that passes. And again to Shannon for
Thank you.
international travel.
Yes, so I will also be looking for approval for the international travel. This is the trip to Ireland that the choir group is looking to take. This was the proposal that I shared with you at the last meeting, and I didn't make any changes since then.
Mr. President,
Yes, Kate?
I move to approve the international overnight travel proposal as presented today.
I second.
Second from Aaron. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is second reading of 200 series and teacher job descriptions with Andrea.
Yes, so this is just, again, like you just said, the second reading of the 200 series. There were no modifications after the first reading, and the same goes with the teacher job description.
Okay, so next, do you want a motion, or we have one more reading, or?
Yep, motion would be fantastic, and then it'll be official that they will be the new policy, so.
Maria?
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the 200 series and the teacher job descriptions as presented.
Second.
Second from Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Passes. So next we have the 26-27 school age care fees. Tracy.
Yes, it's that time of the year to look ahead. In preparation for the March 4K registration, we like to be able to provide families with the information as far as fees for school age care for the upcoming school year. So what you have in front of you are the recommended rates for school age care and the summer rates for 2026 as well. Just as a note, families who qualify for free or reduced meals receive a 50% reduced rate on their fees. Yes, nothing has changed since the last report on this, so I would be asking for a motion.
Mr. President,
Molly?
I move to approve as presented. Thank you.
A second.
Second from Aaron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, that passes. Moving on to the Howell petition to transfer property.
It's that time of year again when we have people that want to petition to move their property potentially from one school district to another. In this case, you'll see on the screen, there's a petition from the Howells. They would like to move their property from the Somerset School District to the Hudson School District. You can see on the map where it's at. It is adjacent to the district. It is at the end of one of the streets there. The recommendation of the administration would be to approve allowing it to come in. Now, there's two parts to this. The Somerset School District also has to approve letting it go. Most of the time, they say no, just as we would usually, giving a property out. So then what happens is, if we say yes and they say no, then the Howells have the opportunity then to appeal to DPI and that process. But of course, I think it would make sense. It doesn't create any islands. It doesn't cause any issues for us. We've had this, happen at different times. Whether or not it actually goes through or what Somerset decides they're going to do is really, to be determined. Last year we had one from River Falls, and actually the River Falls School District said yes to come into our district. And that was because it was a piece of property where half of it was in River Falls and half of it was in Hudson school districts. And so they wanted to join it into one. So the recommendation from the administration would be to approve this request and send it on to DPI and see what happens.
And how many acres did you say it was approximately, or did you not?
I did not say it. Tim, is it on there somewhere? 5 acres.
5 acres, okay. I'll accept a motion to.
Mr. President?
Megan?
I make a motion to approve the Howells petition.
Second.
Second from Kate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. It passes, and we'll probably get turned down.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to a section on selection of new elementary boundaries for the 26-27 year. We'll start off with the MGT presentation.
Yeah, and Lance is going to be coming up, but also we have Trevor here. He's going to be talking a little bit. People had some questions about transportation, and this comes up time and time again. We've tried to talk through it, but Trevor is the individual that is responsible for all of our routing and everything associated with it. So I don't know if Trevor, you want to come up, it'd be helpful because that way you have a microphone and can talk into it, but just kind of talk a little bit about our process related to transportation and, if you can address some of the questions or concerns that have come up. So just push. Sure, yeah, we'll have him start with transportation, and then we're going to turn it over to Lance to do the full MGT presentation.
So the questions arose that, quite a few times on why we can't start routing earlier. And, it might seem that it's a easy, simple solution to just roll over our kids to the next year, when really it's a big puzzle that changes every summer for us. And the effects that really go into that is, if we did that before families registered for school and registered for transportation, is that we'd have frequent stops where we don't need it. For example, even one additional stop, say is 30 seconds, you do 10 additional stops, you've got 5 extra minutes, which creates longer ridership times for kids. It also creates earlier pickup times in the morning and later drop-off times at night. Just in the last couple of weeks, I withdrew 300 students that haven't utilized our transportation services since Thanksgiving, at least since Thanksgiving. So that does create some barriers for us and other families who actually utilize our services. So again, that creates longer ridership times that are unnecessary, but it also requires more busing. So it's going to be a budget factor, and by knowing exactly who rides, we're allowed to consolidate those routes. And if only 30 kids in a neighborhood ride instead of the eligible 60, or presumably those who have registered for transportation of 60, that might be one bus compared to 2 buses, which is a huge expense. And so, the data that we really need before routes can be created and to be most accurate for our families is registering for school and registering for transportation, because we get also many additional addresses requests, such as second households and daycares. And so until those are submitted and verified, routing just really can't be finalized without risking significant rework and inaccurate information for our families. So we also take into consideration the incoming 6th graders who ride our buses due to different walk zones as they had as 5th graders from the elementary. We need to know high school riders as that walk zone and that walking zone distance change from 1 mile from K-8 to 2 miles in high school. We need to know our 4K riders, because we do pick up and do home stops for all 4K riders, and so that's going to be a big impact on ridership times as well. So to make sure all those routes comply with safety, time, capacity limits outlined in our policy and state law, those are some of the things that we really truly need to provide accurate information for our families. So it takes several months to create several drafts in order to communicate those out. And it's kind of like thinking about building a house, where phase 1 is the blueprint. And if you make a change to the walls, if that foundation is already set, there's a lot of work that goes into that reworking and to make it happen. So, every change from the start of the registration date to August, we do rework into those routes because we need to. But that's where a lot of the time is spent as far as transportation goes. So with the new boundaries set, wherever the option is, we're still looking at averaging times of 30 to 45 minutes per ridership. We're going to utilize those buses that were at those 2 elementary schools and utilize those with the other elementary schools. So, I'm pretty confident as those ridership times, they will be within policy, as they always are, that we check every year. So, yeah, any questions?
I have a question. Thank you. Just as you were talking, thank you for explaining that. A
Yeah.
lot of people, including myself, did not understand that up until about a week ago, why we could not do transportation beforehand. It makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you being very mindful, the district being very mindful about ride times. That's obviously an enormous concern, next to making sure that the stops are safe and a safe distance, a reasonably safe distance for any kid that has to actually walk, especially in the wintertime. I know we've gotten a lot of emails about that, so thank you for all of that. When you were talking, this is maybe a silly question, but I'm gonna ask it anyhow. When people sign up and register for the bus routes and then they don't use the bus routes, do we as a district still get billed for that?
So essentially what ends up happening is Trevor gets the registrations, starts building the routes, and then based on how many kids we can get on the buses, determines how many routes we need.
Yep.
And, we're running those routes, and so if all of a sudden, instead of running the buses 80% full, 90% full, we're running them only at 60% full, we could have had fewer routes, but we're now locked into those routes for the year. So, yeah, so essentially, once people sign up for those routes and then they don't use them, we're paying for them.
All year long.
Yeah, usually, I mean,
usually.
it's pretty hard to all of a sudden rework routes in the middle of the year. I mean, Trevor would know that.
And
better
this has
than
been the first time we've withdrew them because of the
thank
lack
you for
of
doing
utilizing the services.
Have we had any pushback or negativity?
You know, as the message went out, I said, contact me if you have any questions or concerns. You know, I would say it's probably under 10 community members that or families that reached out, just asking some clarifying questions, and I was able to explain it. So can't say there was much pushback at all.
Because with that, I was thinking, if you just told 300, families or whatever, that, do we reroute in the middle of the year? You're saying this year we are going to kind of reroute or not?
No. So I was able to withdraw them and then remove their stops. And throughout the last week, I communicated to all those families on those routes that were affected on their new times. So
Well, we were pushing up against capacity, right? And that was some of the
Yep,
problem,
yep.
is that
So
this
that's the
is
thing,
one
is they
reason we haven't
register.
done it historically, yeah.
Correct. So, our capacity, actual bus capacity is 72 when we don't usually hit that, especially for the middle school and high school kids as they're older and bigger, and we can fit more seats for the elementary students. But when we have a capacity of 72, I can't go over that because they are assigned to transportation, but like Nick said, the fact is, there are some that are utilized, it might be a 60% full bus, when truly we have it assigned at 100%.
Can we do something like a confirm your route? I mean, to avoid all those people? Does that make
We
sense?
do.
We do it.
And
Yeah,
we
do that.
actually had a default several years ago where everyone was assigned a bus. And we went away from that, was it 5 years ago, probably?
For me?
Before you, yeah. So then you have to actively register for it.
Okay.
And so our assumption is that you don't register unless you actually need the route. But now we're finding, this is the next layer, right? Where we're able to peel these kids off that have not utilized transportation or change circumstances and they don't need it anymore.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. President, thank you for the background, the Tetris piece that you do put together every year. As a family that has used bus transportation and does, I fully appreciate the hard work that you do and know we're always waiting with bated breath. What is the time? I know when the kids are in elementary, what's my stop? Whose house am I in front of? So it's a big deal. And I do think for families, there's this, I think I need it, and so they don't want to not sign up for something and then not have the ability to sign in later if they figure out they do. And I appreciate that it's hard to change routes. So I think there's a little bit of, everybody's trying to figure out how to make it work. And I can see that changing, like from school year to school year, within the school year where, a second drop off is needed for whatever reason at the elementary age of our childcare has changes. So now we need them to go to this house instead of here, or living situations have changed. And so I know there's some flexibility there and you guys try and work with
get
families.
those daily.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So thank you, and I appreciate that you are taking a thoughtful approach and trying to say you want the best information to make the best routes possible, so we know what we have to work with, rather than making a guess at what it might be, and knowing that guess is going to change potentially very dramatically with fifth graders going up to middle school and middle schoolers going to high school, and we're not quite sure who the 4K mix is yet and where their and the kindergartners need to be. So thank you. I know it's not an easy job, Tara.
Well, in the, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay.
That's okay. My question was, I have been a parent that's been guilty of signing my kid up, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna drive them to school in the morning because they'll have more time at home, but they are gonna take the bus back home. So I had no idea that was an issue. I probably should have thought about it, but was working and kids and all that good stuff. So is there a way to maybe inform parents that it's more serious or more of an interest to know that if you're only planning to have them ride the bus once every few months, is there a workaround for that? Could they call you and arrange that, or so that we're not setting the buses up inappropriately?
For sure. And so we do, or I I create a report every month on who has not ridden since last month, or even from the beginning of the school year, to be honest with you. And so we've sent out multiple times this year to families, you know, if we've noticed you haven't utilized the services, please let us know if you'd like to discontinue them, to make things more efficient for the other families that are utilizing it. And again, this is the first time that we've actually just withdrawn those students with the message saying you have a couple weeks to let us know if you want to continue that. So, you know.
I just wonder if even when you register the student, if there's a note you could put in there about the importance of if they truly are riding the bus, and maybe an alternate of what they could do if they only need to ride it once a month.
We haven't withdrawn anybody who hasn't ridden within once a month. You know, like I went back 2 months and just did 300 students. So, but we do tell families that it can't just be a just in case kind of scenario, because that affects everybody on the routes. And so if we send the message that if you're a consistent rider, we don't have ridership anything in our policy about what ridership really is. Is it 30 days not utilizing the services or more, or is it 2 weeks? And so that's why I went back as far as 2 months to get a better picture and to hopefully just start there as the process. But, you know, if families want, when they do register for transportation, they're able to say, you know, I only need it in the morning, or I only need it in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
All those are alternative addresses, and so they do fill out that extra form if they have special circumstances there.
We could maybe put a caveat or something in there to, like, if, I don't know if Sky were to let us do it in the registration process, but something saying, please be aware that this routing, you know, have some kind of cautionary note, because I did it as well, signed my kid up, and then and he got his
now I'm
license, doesn't need it, so.
We're just mentioning, like, you know, a 30-day inactivity, you know, some sort of a policy.
Citing it,
Just cite a policy in there that says what the expectations are, and, you know, if they're questioning it, maybe they should contact you before they sign up for it and just talk through those options. I mean, I don't know.
Mr. President?
Yes,
Couple questions. I can't remember, Trevor, so you'll have to remind me, but I think students are able to pick some days a week, or is that not true, right? So it's pretty clear when you're like, I'm gonna need Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the morning, and Tuesday, Thursday in the afternoon. And then I usually sign up right away, but then I'll get the emails that say, remember to sign up for transportation if you need it. I wonder if you just added something in there that's like, and if you did sign up for transportation and you no longer need it, let us know now because we're finalizing routes. Like just something like that, because I'm like, yes, I already did it. But that could be a good reminder for people too, because it's sort of like once something's done, like it is, and I did it 3 months ago, I can't remember it anymore. Like there's been too much going on. So even just a little reminder email when those go out.
Well, I think defining what ridership is too. Like I said, that ridership is just in the policy, but it's not defined what that is. So if we had something specific to guide families, that might better support them as well.
And it's been a great addition with the bus cards that we've had for almost 10 years now, I want to say.
So that's how I get if
that's
I
how you
know
get the
if they're
data.
riding or not, they're scanning. Yep.
Well, I'm glad you're here tonight. I think with the transition we're going through, it's important. You know, I've heard some questions about, you know, people don't all know that if their kids were walkers before and now they're going to be on a bus, that, you know, all kindergarten, you know, has driveway bus stops and.
Kindergarten does not.
Or kindergarten.
4K.
4K, yeah. And, but the decision, you know, some people said, well, why can't the busing company tell you this or do that? And it's Trevor that's doing it. It's our administration that is doing these routes. But working with Safeway, as far as I know, Aaron brought up safety, and you know, people are concerned about the safety of the stops and things like that. And you certainly know your job, take those precautions, but also there's feedback from Safeway.
Absolutely.
If they see something that's a concern.
Those
you know,
3 months in drafts are very collaborative with Safeway.
I just wanted to mention that. I think needs to be known. Any other questions?
I just wanted to make sure Trevor was here to answer your questions and also to clarify some things. I think sometimes people think that routing just is an easy process. We try to be as customer service friendly as we can. I mean, we have some kids that, like Trevor said, are dropped off at certain locations, certain days of the week. They're picked up at different locations, different days of the week. We try to accommodate split households and things like that. And these things don't just happen, and you can't just build, full transportation maps for multiple options and things like that. It doesn't work that way. And so because we offer such a variety of transportation, I mean, if we were gonna say, fine, we're only giving one stop, you get one stop and that's it. And we're not making all of these accommodations, we could drastically change the way we deliver transportation, but I don't think people are going to appreciate that because we've tried to be accommodating as we work through it. So Trevor does an outstanding job. He bears the brunt of a lot of sometimes less than friendly comments because people want stops where they want them. But as he said, you have to remember every time we stop that bus, it adds 30 to 45 seconds to the route. And we also get on the other end, why does my kid have to get on the bus so early in the morning and things along those lines? So we're balancing a lot of different moving pieces. We're trying to be as efficient as we can with tax dollars and things like that. We're trying to be accommodating, but Trevor is a great resource. He's done a great job with transportation. I don't know if you've noticed in the last couple of years, we haven't had those first couple of weeks of school that were like cringeworthy with transportation, and that credit goes to Trevor and what he's doing, because within a day or two, we're getting buses running on time and things like that, which is really outstanding. So thanks, Trevor. I appreciate it. Welcome. Thank you. All right. So now the second part of this is really talking specifically about the boundaries. And so we have Lance here from MGT, who is starting to become a regular in the district. And so I'll turn it over to him and his presentation as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening. As a former director of transportation for my school district, I just was kind of nodding my head because of that. It's really impactful for that first student of the morning. I mean, that is just brutal to be the first one on the bus, a cold bus, and having to either back it up or bring it forward. So as tight as you can make it for that first stop of the day is always helpful to that family. And a lot of times when you explain that to folks, they understand, but they still want the option, to ride that bus. So thank you for this opportunity to be here today. I would like to say up front that this has been a very positive process for us. As a person that travels the nation doing this work and having to have these tough conversations in communities, I would applaud your board and their efforts and being very deliberate in this process. And really, I'd applaud your community because they came in, they responded, they were very respectful, and asked very deliberate questions, questions that clearly meant you could tell that they were engaged in the process, these insightful questions in terms of it. And as a result, this has led to a very positive process in terms of iterations, because as I explained to folks when we started these community engagements, you can change the outcome of this. What happens as a result of this discussion around this topic can change the outcome, and that's exactly what has happened. So let's go. This is our team on the ground, just me tonight, but we've had a great team working behind this together in partnership with the district, so appreciate that. Just a quick, a lot of these slides are the slides we had in our community present. They all are except for the newest iteration, but I feel like it's important, kind of like, last time on Landman. This is kind of our look back on the prior episode, kind of set the table. I will move through this very quickly, given that most folks have had an opportunity to review this, but I think it is important to kind of establish where we were and where we are and now where we're headed. So on this overall approach, we talked about this, establishing that elevator speech, but we are now up to those final recommendations. We're bringing back the final round of community engagement, and so we're here to share that information with you in terms of this overall approach. It's hard not having a clicker. And so in taking a look at the historical enrollment, we broke this out into 241 study areas, and those are based off of the elementary attendance zones, and you bring those, get more granular into the 241 study areas of plus or minus 40-ish, 50-ish students to kind of study those. And what you can see here is purple shows declining, blue shows the increasing counts in those areas. Just some historic student analysis in this, and what you can see is you look back at 2022, you were well above that 5,000, 5,600 on that chart. And as we trend downward, we can see 4 years later that we're at about just a little above 5,000 students. So this is kind of just the historic trend that you've seen here over the last 4 years. So we always look back to begin to look forward. Just a key takeaway here is that you're operating at your elementaries at a 66% utilization, meaning you have around 1,000 empty seats, plus or minus, across the district. And that does represent significant underutilization of resources. You can think of seats being dollars, much like a bus. In this case, classrooms, seats are dollars. And so the forecast factors, this is kind of how the recipe for how the cake is baked. And we have the three legs of the stool, if you will, the birth factors, the mobility factors, and the student yield factors. And the birth factors lead directly into the number of kids that show up in kindergarten. You really can't measure very much about your PK or your TK or pre-K because those are choices and different options for folks out there. But you can take a look at how many of those students are born here and then show up in your kindergarten classes. And you do retain a significant percentage of those. Mobility factors are a little different. That's the number of kids in and kids out, and we'll talk more about this in just a second, but it really kind of leans into your housing turnover and how many folks can kind of join you maybe in first or second or third grade, or how many folks move out during first, second, or third grade. And then student yield factors, very simply, that's the new housing. That's either whether it's your sweet spot is single family homes, but looking at multifamily dwellings, townhomes, those types of things, and how many, when you have a new home come online, homes, plural, come online, how many of those students will show up? How many students will those homes generate for you looking into the future? And all right, so that creates your student forecast. So historic births, key takeaway here is coming out of the recession and then coming into COVID and out of COVID, you've seen a decline in your birth rates coming forward. And there are a number of factors on that we talked about in our sessions: smaller families, delayed childbirth, all of those things impact your historic births and heading on into the future. Mobility factors that we talked about, and these are the kind of a 1. If you got a 1.01, you kind of gained a kid, but if you get a 0.99, you lost a kid, and those things multiply on top of one another. So if you look at Holton, you see that the 0.01, 0.01, 0.03, those things are factored as they roll forward. You will note that 8 to 9, what you're going to see there is that some students are returning from private or parochial, and you'll see at your 11, 12, those are seniors that may have not quite graduated, been able to go back and kind of come back into the cohort. And so these are strong numbers. They just don't show growth. There's not a lot of turnover of homes to bring families back into your community. And looking at residential development, 665 new housing units. And in fact, after our first session, someone pointed out some other stuff that wasn't there that we were able to bring back in and factor. If you look at all of this, we're saying about 0.33, which means out of every 100 students, every 100 new single-family detached homes will generate about 33 new students. And again, there's different yield factors for multifamily, but you don't have a lot of multi-unit housing in your district. So district forecast. And this gradient just basically shows you the pink and the darker the pink or purple that you see there, or lavender. You ladies would have to tell me exactly. You've got an art teacher. Anyway, the purplish numbers are smaller than the blue numbers. Okay, and a key takeaway here is as you're looking at this, what you're going to see is most of your blue numbers, if not all of your blue numbers, are in your historic data points. And as you carry that forward, what you can see is across the years is that it's a smaller kindergarten unit. And demography 101, you don't have to, it doesn't take a rocket scientist for this. You see the number of students that are graduating and then just go up to the next year and see the number of kids coming in kindergarten. So as you look at, say, 2022, you graduated 469 and you brought in 354. And so that kind of is that march as they make their way through, because it takes 13 years for the whole thing to matriculate through, kind of sift through the school district. So as you go across the bottom there, you're at about a 50 to 60, looking back 4 years, and as you carry that forward out to 2035, you're looking at, under 4,200. And this is just representative of that data you see there. And what you can see is that, and we'll see this in just a moment, but the elementaries kind of come in and they level out. And then as everything sifts through, middle schools come in and level out, and high school will be the last to be impacted as it sifts through and those classes matriculate through. Similarly, questions arose around development, and so this is just a chart that indicates if no new builds were factored in, if no development took place, if your entire housing stock was static, where would you be? It would impact it by a little over 4% in overall enrollment. Forecasted resident status, resident students. So we worked off the resident students in terms of where they are and carrying them forward. And you can kind of see those numbers carry across to a 5 and 10 year change. So if we go to the next slide, is a graphic representation of this information. You can kind of see Rivercrest was the only school forecasted to have any growth across that 5 and 10 year window in terms of the development, in terms of the other factors that lean in there. And you can see, at the bottom there, a 10% across 5 years for the high school and a 20% decline across 10 years across for the high school, as all of those numbers, again, sift down through the high school, sift down through the high school. And some key takeaways here, we've already talked about this a little bit, but the K-5 student forecast declining initially, and you're going to level out by 2030 at around 1,750 students. Just all those factors from the three legs of that stool in terms of student forecasting are going to sift into that plateau. Similarly then, following that just a little bit later, the little post 2030 around in there, grades 6 through 8 will level out at about 900. And then the high school is the last to kind of settle in at about 1,400 resident students by 2032. And so some key takeaways here. We are seeing overall enrollment decline. The primary driver are falling birth rates and new housing. Really all of those factors are there. You've got declining birth rates. You don't have a lot of housing stock that is available to folks to come in, and new housing stock is minimal. The steepest declines will be in the secondary schools now, because you're examining the elementary for this exact issue, and as it matriculates forward, elementaries are going to stabilize first. Again, those 1,000 empty seats at the elementaries, and there is a strategic imperative now for right-sizing facilities and adjusting attendance boundaries as a result. So boundary considerations, the board spent, and I do appreciate the young lady who cited some of the guiding principles earlier in the session around transportation, because you as a board gave this a very, you took a very concerted effort behind this and making sure that you define this for your community and help to bring it forward and help us in terms of our calculations. I will tell you this though, as we well know, we looked at all these guiding principles, but they just yin and yang off of one another. And I likened it to the Powerball draw, the ping pong balls bouncing around in there, because some of it works really great for neighborhood schools, but maybe not toward capacity and utilization. And so those were a large part of the conversations we had at community engagement around these guiding principles. So these are your existing boundaries, just as a refresh so folks can see it with a pull-out for the downtown area. And our initial boundary proposals centered around the blue, the green, and the purple. Blue looking at balanced growth. Green was supposed to kind of work toward keeping neighborhoods together. And then purple, it was the most efficient. If you're just looking straight up at numbers, purple was the one that the numbers worked the best. And so at our in-person, we had quite a few folks at this first meeting, but only 28 participants that night in the live polling. And the key takeaways there, they were concerned about transportation, the splits across other schools for impacted students, multiples of splits, and the increases of class sizes. Interestingly, they saw green as the better one and felt purple should be eliminated. But that didn't carry forward as we got kind of into the overall larger poll, if you want to If we went into the post-online, meaning the community survey, you had over 275 responses, and you can kind of see what schools were broke out there. Hudson Prairie leading the way at 80, I think then followed by EP Rock. And as you look at that, these were the key priorities or things they were considering. So that was the polling information in around minimizing impact and capacity and utilization. And then the comments and the open-ended things dealt with minimizing impact. Class size and capacity was a common theme. Neighborhood cohesion and communities, transportation. Appreciate the presentation tonight. And then this is something that's very interesting. A lot of folks had conversation with us around, okay, let's just not go through this again in another 5. Let's make this work. Let's make this stick so that we as a community don't have to revisit this again. So that stability and long-term sustainability came up here, and you'll see it as a factor later. So in this one, I think the key takeaway from the information that's on this slide is that from the larger post-online survey, what you saw that was purple was the scenario that was most preferred, and that blue was the least preferred. Green kind of came in number 2, no matter what, in all those situations. And then in looking at this, they felt like blue had more disruptions, which it did. Green was cleaner in many ways, but purple drew the strongest best option support. But there were concerns around all of these scenarios that kind of led us to kind of take another stab at it. So that ended up being our orange scenario. And we're calling this orange scenario original version because this is what we presented to the community in our January 27th presentation. And it preserved the boundaries of the purple while keeping the biggest drawback from purple was it split the downtown. So kind of keeping those neighborhoods together and providing a little bit more in the way of cohesion for the students that were there. And so in taking a look at this was the in-person poll. Interestingly, we had just a slightly fewer folks at our second meeting, but we had more live participation with those folks. And you can see the word wall around busing and class size and longevity, long-term sustainability. In this case, the efforts that were made around the new scenario, orange was viewed as the best scenario. In this case, purple was kind of put on the back burner, orange most preferred. So in looking at this, then you can kind of see where the respondents, again, quite a few from Hudson Prairie and then Willow River. Now this is our online survey. We had over 180 responses then in this second go around. And folks were also given a QR code where they could go out and take a look at the maps and drill in and see where their neighborhoods. I think one of the gentlemen spoke about where his house was in terms of a route, in terms of the blue. So anyway, this is where the students were and where they attended. Again, minimizing disruptions, class size, and keeping neighborhoods and community together. And you can see the capacity and balance. There was a lot of conversations in our second meeting around capacity and utilization. And so again, in this case, you can see just graphically, orange was most preferred, and then wanting to remove purple as a boundary option in this. And I think what happened there, people saw that this was an option about splitting the downtown. They're like, nah. We can do a lot of things, but let's kind of keep that cohesion. And a perfect example of the community feedback being a key driver in terms of changes to future versions. So in doing this, again, blue moved too many. Green, it was reasonable. Purple had strong support, but orange was best aligned, that moved the fewest students and had the better natural boundaries in terms, especially around neighborhood impact. But I will say this, we still had a lot of conversations around class size and sections, and that was a conversation during this meeting and then a conversation after the meeting with folks. And so if we go to the next slide, which led to, but wait, there's more, orange version 2. And so what we did is we took that feedback, and we'll see, I will have a breakdown of the capacity and utilizations and the students impacted once we bring them all together here in just a moment. For the sake of time, though, I just thought we'd wait and get to those. So in this case, we're looking at maintaining small class sizes at Hudson Prairie and adjusting for that. And they're as much as 4% smaller in this situation. And accommodating, there's a conversation around the I think it's County Road UU, correct? around that property and what could potentially take place there, maybe factoring in for that into the future. And so we did some modifications there. And in this new version, in the orange scenario, what you can see is 191 from Holton, 240 from Willow River, and then 132 from other schools. And I'll give you a better breakdown of this in just a second. In this slide, you can see Rivercrest, there's no difference, there's no change from the original orange to the orange version 2 for Rivercrest. And similarly, North Hudson did not have any changes in the orange scenario in the version 2. Here are the changes. Basically, areas in the city of Hudson east of downtown, so you see the orange outline there at the top of the screen, moved from Hudson Prairie down into Rock Elementary, and this is in version 2. And then I'll speak to this other box in the next screen. In this case, the box there, yes, on the kind of centered there, St. Croix Estates, Crosby Drive, Pamela Lane, and Joseph Circle moved from Rock Creek is a school in my neighborhood, Rock Elementary School to Hudson Prairie Elementary School in version 2, and creating more balance. So in version 2, in orange version 2, you can see the things for Holton and where they're going to end up. But as you come down, you can see total impacted students, 184, 126, 107, and 146. And you can see where the students are going in this model, 16. So in this, those kids that are going from Rock to Hudson Prairie, it was 16 students were impacted in that. All right. So here are the kind of the impacted students. Now the blue, the green, and the purple are the ones that we presented at the start. And I think it's kind of important to take a look at the orange original versus the orange version 2 in terms of the total number. A few more students are impacted. So the total had been 547. Now the total is 563. And so if you pop forward then to the next slide, what this shows you is that those additional numbers of impacted students then led to the better utilizations in the schools. So in the original orange, the big question was that 90%, and how did that impact the students and the number of sections. And as you well know, as a building administration or central office folks, a few kids one way or another can determine whether or not there's another section of a given class. And we know that overall trend lines for all the schools, it's just going to get a little easier at each of these elementaries. We just really, next year's kind of the determining factors as this process moves forward. So in version 2, we worked to make the utilization at Hudson Prairie there 88 instead of 90. And you can see then with the change of students, it kind of changes a little bit as it rides forward. And then a little bit different down for Rock Elementary at a little higher utilization, which is a better use of that space, 83, 84, and 83. I did it as fast as I could. Any questions?
Mr.
A lot there.
Megan, start us off.
I don't know that I have any questions for you right
Okay.
now, and so I don't know if this is the right time, so just tell me no. But I'm just wondering if Shannon or any of the principals want to give feedback of what they've talked about in terms of all the complications of scheduling the literacy blocks and gym time and lunchtime and all these things. I can't imagine how you do them all as you've looked through these scenarios.
Yeah, so I would say from the start, the principals were really kind of looking at what is efficient, right? But also what's a good balance. And I think originally purple looked like something that was, nice and balanced and was also concise, but given the feedback from the community. Orange looked pretty good, but that pop of 5 sections in 5th grade really created some complications when it comes to master schedules. So that was one of the things that they looked at. And then also very important to the principals was being able to have 4K in every building. They've heard that a lot from families. So that original orange didn't allow that at every building. So the new orange kind of blends together all of their concerns and addresses them in a nice way.
Maria?
Quick question, Shannon, can you clarify when addressing their concerns around 4K, does that 4K with 4K wrap care or just 4K alone?
Well,
Are there
the
still-
original one with 5 sections
Yep.
at 5th grade at Prairie, and then assuming that we had 4 sections in every other grade, would not allow for 4K
Right.
at Prairie.
But V2, I guess is what I'm honing in on, is I'm trying to understand when you said it addresses the
Right.
issues around 4K and V2, can you clarify, is it allowing 4K and 4K wrap care at all 4 buildings
I
or
believe that
just
if,
4K?
yeah, I believe if we are 4 sections throughout, we'll have room for 4K, not necessarily wrap, but that would depend, depending on how many sections of kindergarten we end up with, we could possibly have
Okay,
wrap care.
So wrap care's a little plus, great, thank you.
Right.
And more likely could have wrap care after next year.
Oh, yes.
As space opens up, as we predict. Okay, Aaron, you were next.
I've spent a lot of time looking at these maps and all these numbers. It's a lot to digest. If anybody else is trying to follow here, it really would have been, you've done a fantastic job. I just want to start by saying that. It would have been really helpful to see these numbers, to just like, let them set in a little bit. So it's just hard to see them all and pick numbers out on the screen like this. But I appreciate the efforts you've definitely made here, a lot of great improvements. I have, just overall looking at all the numbers, I'm concerned that Prairie is still operating at the highest percentage. I mean, it's like 90%, 90%, 88%, 90%, 88%. I mean, within 2%, and we continue to look at Rivercrest in every single one of these scenarios at 73%, 78% in one, but 72%, 72%, and whatever the last number is on here, 78%, 79%, I don't know where we're at. But when we redrew the boundary lines previously, it was to alleviate the growth projection that Rivercrest area was expecting. And we moved 65 kids from Hudson Prairie, I'm sorry, from Rivercrest to Hudson Prairie. And now we're still, I mean, Hudson Prairie just seems like it's got a lot more kids than everybody else. And I am very concerned when we start looking at this UU property, and the hot areas that you have on the map, those being potential areas for growth, and going, do we really have enough room at Hudson Prairie if we're pushing 88 and 90% in all of these scenarios? The last thing anyone, I'm certain here, wants to do is be sitting in another one of these meetings in a couple of years. So how can we maybe even balance this out even a little bit better so we aren't jeopardizing that? I don't know. Just my initial thought.
I'm not sure of the question there. I would say that.
It was kind of more of just like
Okay.
a statement
Then
of
I'll-
where I
you know,
was.
then
what
an
I was
answer's not
feeling with it. If it makes you
warranted.
feel better. I wasn't really looking for an answer other than like, how can we maybe balance, is there a way to balance this out a little bit better so it doesn't feel like there's so much going in one direction? It just doesn't seem overall equitable. Does that make sense?
Well, and just kind of, one of the numbers that, that we don't have up here is we look at year by year. What MGT is, they look at year by year. And one of the things that happens with Hudson Prairie is after next year, the numbers go down drastically. And it's no longer sitting at 88%. It drops quite a bit. In 2027, it's projected to drop below 500. So actually, it's about a 45 kid drop, almost 8% in that first year, and then it starts to level out. And so, we had conversations with Cameron, who put a lot of this stuff together. It is really high, or it's high to start the very first year, but then it goes down and sits, kind of between that 75 and 80% after that, which then gives it more space that if the UU property comes online and there's more housing and things like that, it can handle that. So it really is only at that 88% for 1 year, and then it drops 8%. It'll go down to like 80% after the first year.
So what does that do then for like Rivercrest? Are we looking at that same drop there?
So as you can see on the slide up there, Rivercrest actually starts to pick up some kids based on the developments that could come up. And we did have, the developments did come online that we were planning for in 2018. They just didn't yield. We had higher yield rates at that time based on what we were looking at with birth rates and stuff like that. So we have a much more conservative yield rate, much more probably realistic yield rate on those housing. And so that's why even in the orange option, Rivercrest, starts to climb, but none of them really, over the next 5 to 10 years, none of them will be over 500 students, even with that climbing. And so the goal too was to try to make sure, as we heard from the board, is, you wanted balance. You didn't want to come back here again in 5 years. So if you look at the 2030 utilization in Orange version 2, Prairie's down to 74%, North Hudson's at 81, Rivercrest is up to 78, and then Rock's hanging steady at 84. So these were set up to give us the longest term boundaries. It really is a 1-year issue because there's a really large going into 5th grade class at Hudson Prairie.
Is it possible to do a side-by-side of the hotspots in version 2? Can you do that, Tim? In the presentation? I mean, from the other, it's on the website. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if that would be helpful.
I mean, we're talking about one of the goals here is so we don't have to come back, and reboundary again as quickly. And also, people have said, you're just gonna come back and wanna build another school down the road because if enrollment goes up. And we've said no many times. I'd be concerned about, I agree that Rivercrest, looks right now for this year, like, yeah, well, we could, have more kids there, but also just concerned, that's one of the schools, like, down the road, if we had to add on facilities or classrooms, we could easily do that. And so if we reboundary and it gets to take some more Prairie off or Rock or wherever off the table and move that to Rivercrest, and then they do get the growth that's expected, that then our future board's gonna say, well, let's just build more space onto Rivercrest instead of going through a reboundary process. So again, if efficiency of space and for long-term is paramount, I agree. I didn't like purple because of the downtown division at all. So I was very pleased with orange, and now orange version 2, like I said, we're affecting 16 families potentially. That's my comment. Kate?
I was hoping to hear from the principals too, if you had any input on what, like, pros and cons of the colors here. And then another question that I had, and I just want to ask it now because I think you could address that too, is a lot of people have asked or questioned the socioeconomic and the special education, specifically noting that EP Rock has a different population. And so I thought maybe, Dolph, you could speak to that as well. And then Nick, as to why we're not announcing where we're seeing socioeconomic differences and special education.
Go ahead, Dolph.
A lot, so.
I'll just answer. On? Okay. I'll answer the socioeconomic piece with kind of where you're landing. And I think the last time that you worked through the boundary process, it did some balancing between Rivercrest and EP Rock that is staying in place. And so I think that piece, now I can't talk about the other elementaries, but with keeping kind of that southern boundary where it is, it's balanced that piece between our two buildings.
So, and yeah, to echo kind of what Dolph said, so a lot of, we did this in 2018. We did try to balance them out a little bit more, and we've kept those boundaries in place that we're balancing them out. I know when, the reason we don't share student economic data outside of the district is because it's the most sensitive data we have in the district. It takes, it used to be all the way up until about 5 years ago, we couldn't even look at it as it related to student achievement because the federal government said you can't share this with anybody. And so there was about 2 people in the district that knew who was on free or reduced lunch. They both happen to work in food service. And so that's why that data wasn't shared. But we did, in talking with Cameron and MGT, they did look at the 5-year census data, which is the American, I'm drawing a blank on American Community Service, to look at where they can look at that information by household. And we're told that, based on by household, not necessarily by students, that we keep a pretty consistent average across the elementaries. And then as far as special education goes, we serve all of our kids regardless of where they live. It's not necessarily where they live determines their service. It is their needs are what determine their services. And so, I know Tara had a meeting with parents or had an open forum. I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit, but, they had some ideas that they had come up with. And some of the things are things that we already do, and we just had to kind of clarify. But I don't know if you want to talk about the services piece. And
Sure can. We had a meeting last Tuesday. It was open to all elementary parents that had children with special needs, and talked about our process, transitioning, gave kind of our preliminary, thank you, thoughts, and got some feedback from them, and just a lot of clarifying questions. Even our parents of our students don't realize that we do have services in all our buildings. Our buildings don't dictate what the services are, the students do. So whatever student shows up into whatever building, whatever those IEPs say, that's why we're anxiously awaiting a decision so we can finish or figure out where the students are. Then we will adjust our staffing. We have staffing go across K-12, whether it's OT, PT, vision, hearing, you name it, those services will be where the students land at the end of this.
Brian?
Thanks, Mr. President. First of all, I just think it says something about this board that there are multiple members racing to answer what ACS stands for. I'm proud of you guys. But I just wanted to, Aaron, I appreciate your thoughts on Prairie. I had those thoughts with Orange version 1. This one got a little bit better. What kind of comforts me about it is the drop in, year 2. That it's such a dramatic drop, and if it was, we're going to stick at 90 through 2030 and then see a drop, I'd have more concerns. But we really know who those kids are in years 1 and 2 and 3. They're here, they live in the district. So that kind of, I feel more comfortable with Orange version 2 in that way, that Prairie's not going to hold at that level. The other piece I wanted to say is when Orange version 2 came out mid last week, I was, oh my gosh, we've got another version. We need to hear from people. But as I've realized, it's really more an iterative process. That it's not really another version that we went back and threw things at the wall and see what popped out.
And
Go ahead.
that's exactly why we left it as Orange and Orange version 2. Because really we didn't reinvent any wheel. It was just a very direct attempt at addressing the very pointed questions around capacity and utilization at Prairie.
Thank you. And then I had one further point. I know Mr. Barabi is in the crowd. He sounds like he has a very unique situation. So Nick, can we make sure that kind of he's with his neighborhood in whatever version we end up in?
yeah, that happened, I think, back in 2018. It had to do with the planning districts or the planning zones. And it had to do with which street a driveway was on for a neighborhood. And so the orange version does take care of that weird kind of jet out based on the planning zones. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to just address your question, Kate. We did talk, I just want to reiterate what Shannon said. We talked as a principal team today, prioritizing class sizes, balanced sections, 4K and wrap care, keeping neighborhoods together, and minimizing the disruption for kids. So basically what Shannon said would be the priorities of the principal team. And I also think the sooner we can make a decision, the better, so that we can start getting plans made for staffing. People are anxious and want to know where they're going, so thanks.
Mr. President, I wanted to follow up a little bit with the exception for Mr. Barabee. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with names. I really am. How, going forward, we're gonna have one-offs like this, I think. We're gonna have some stuff that's like, ugh, how are we gonna handle that? What's the plan?
Well, so we're not making an exception for him. So it just happens that the Orange Plan
The Orange Plan fixes that, okay.
fixes that, but it wasn't because he asked for an exception or anything like that.
Okay,
It was just,
okay, I'm
it's
sorry,
just-
I misunderstood that
Yeah, there was
completely. I'm
no
sorry.
special
Didn't mean to throw you
treatment.
under the bus
Sorry,
there,
sorry, no,
sorry.
but it just by the way it kind of worked. It's yeah.
So what happens though, I mean, we probably are gonna have some oddball things, I mean, I would imagine. So what's the plan? Do we have a policy that people we just gonna stand with what we have? Or, and then they can ask for not a boundary, but
That's what I was gonna ask
Thank
Trevor
you,
about.
yeah.
Trevor left, but I was gonna say, for these, end of road kind of things that you look on a map and it just makes sense. There is a little flexibility for that, or?
No.
I mean,
He says no.
yeah. I mean,
Typically, there's a
it's
boundary exception process.
the boundary exception process
And they don't have
is what we
access
use.
to transportation.
Yes, but you set boundaries, you set boundaries. So there's not a, and then boundary exceptions don't qualify for transportation. So if somebody all of a sudden lives in the Hudson Prairie area and they want to go to the EP Rock area, if there's space, we don't overload. And so we have a boundary exception process, and I think Erin and I talked about this last week. It is a board policy. It was put in place back when we did boundaries in 2018. It can be found on our website. It lays out all the considerations and the order in which we process boundary exceptions. We do it every year. It's not new. Nothing's changed related to that process, but I know somebody asked about fifth graders. Could they stay? My comment to that would be, if there's room, they would file the boundary exception process like anybody else. However, fifth graders at Holton and Willow River are moving to new schools. So they don't have that option. And so that's part of why we didn't do this like we did last time, where we said fifth graders could be grandfathered in last time. We didn't do that because we knew that there were going to be students that weren't going to have a choice one way or another because their schools were closing. And so in trying to be fair to all involved, that was the direction that we went through that.
I didn't mean to give Andrea a heart attack or give everybody a chance that they think there's wiggle room for anything. But like Mr. Barry said, there were some in the last boundary things that just went, I'm the only family on this street, and we had to work through that.
We did, and we had lots of meetings with families over the years where they were raising those issues. And so each time we refine it a little bit more, and with our specific software that we utilize now with Traversa, it's so much more specific. Than in the past, it was really looking at maps and drawing areas. Now it's down to the street and down to GIS and all that fancy stuff.
I have a question. So through this, looking at it, for a little bit of perspective on longevity, on the estimates that you have, I think we all have a strong interest in having boundaries that will last for as long as possible. Nobody relishes the idea of going back and having to reconsider boundaries again. Give us a perspective on what you see happening here and kind of in relation to other schools. I think you've touched on it a little in past presentations, but I think reiterating it would be helpful.
In general, especially in a situation like this where you guys you're just here, you're not falling off a cliff, you've got just a general decline. It would be a wonderful thing if a new development came online that we weren't aware of, that some kind of zoning change and you had a little more of a high density development. However, as was shared, we're seeing this nationally. You're just not getting the number of kids out of new homes that you did at one point. We feel really good about our 3-5 year numbers. I'd be amazed if we were off by very much, but again, then at that point, you're making assumptions about assumptions. When you're going out there. But because of this number and the way it's kind of trending down, you could absorb quite a few more students in 3 years if something else were to come online. So this is a very stable community with kind of a stable reduction of students. So of all the places we've been, I feel really, I mean, I hate to say this, I feel really good about the numbers that we've been able to project for you and the process that we've had here. I don't see a situation where we're off by much. I just don't, given what you have and just the stable nature of your community. There's not a lot of this going on here. And you saw that in your mobility numbers are an exact reflection of that. Did that answer the question? Okay.
And I just want to say thank you for the responsiveness of your team in creating the orange scenario and then orange scenario tweaked V2. Just the feedback from the community, I think speaks a lot to how you captured that feedback in creating a new scenario.
I think it was important. This was a very important process for your community in that, we generally only do one community engagement round and then kind of bring back from the start. The district leadership was, no, we want this second round. We want this additional opportunity. And I will share as a former elementary principal, best job ever, that, kids just want to know. Families just want to know. They want to have an answer. Kids will be great. Kids will be just fantastic. It's the adults that you've got to kind of work through the process. And so, yeah, the kids will be great in this situation. We just see that everywhere.
Brian?
Thanks, Mr. President. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we adopt Orange version 2 for the 26-27 school year. Certainly, I don't want to stop discussion if we wanted to, but just to get it on the table.
So we have a second.
Second.
Second from Megan. Still open for discussion though, if people have more to add.
I know I had asked Tim about the hotspot. It's okay. I just want to note that it is in Rivercrest. The biggest hotspot is in Rivercrest. The second biggest hotspot is also in Rivercrest. So that makes a difference.
Mr. President? As far as discussion, I think this is a question comment. At this time, would we also make the decision of how many sections, or would that be a separate motion? Like, are we gonna go with limited sections if it passed? I don't know if it's a second motion or not, because if you have 85 sections, you have a second grade at North Hudson, that's a little bit over, which I'd be hesitant to do in the younger grades, versus a little bit over in 5th grade at Hudson Prairie for 1 year. I feel comfortable with that. So is that a second motion if this one passes, or is it all wrapped into one? I don't know.
So typically, the boundaries are the boundaries, not necessarily allocated sections. And so, as if you want to direct us also to say, hey, do your planning around 86 elementary sections, we can absolutely do that. Know that, what's happening is things are very kind of fluid in the spring, and that's why, we kind of wait sometimes to pop sections, sometimes we take sections away. I mean, when kindergarten roundup happens here, coming up in about a month from tomorrow, that will give us some information, because all of a sudden, if our kindergarten numbers, instead of coming in at 290, come in at 240, there might be where instead of needing 4 sections at Hudson Prairie, we might only need 3 sections of kindergarten at Hudson Prairie. And so we really, so if you say, hey, base it around the 86 sections for right now, with the understanding that, we still have a ways to go because we have to get registration and things like that. And that's where you guys are going to start seeing the projected class sizes, that document that you start to see about this time of year for next year. We'll start populating that and rolling that stuff forward as we do that. And that's when we start saying to you, okay, we have concern, we want to pop another section here or something like that. You know, so yes, we can build it around 86 sections and without an issue. And that's what we bring to the board.
Okay, if there's, Aaron?
I just wanna just say this. Over the past couple of weeks, I've personally asked a lot of questions, a lot. I've listened carefully to the public and even had more questions come up and spent quite a bit of time with Nick, and he answered very well all the questions that I had. And then, again, talking with the community just to make sure this all made sense. And while I wish that there would have been a little more time to review those additional slides and that we would have had that, I still feel good about the information that's being presented and understanding the rush, the need to move forward for families and teachers and staff. And at the same time, I just want to acknowledge and that I understand, I know Maria has been through the boundary before with her kiddos, and I just want to acknowledge that no matter how thorough this process is or how exact the data is or how much care is put into this work, there's still going to be people who are upset. There just are. Change is hard, and it's especially hard when you didn't ask for it, and it really doesn't feel very good. But we can really do hard things, and we can move forward together even when it's difficult. And I also want to acknowledge the excellent work of MGT in presenting the options and answering the questions and fielding the questions that I keep asking, as well as the effort of our administration team and our teachers, and what you guys are doing to support the students and the family and the staff. That's it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Sorry.
I would just mention what Sue Helmer said earlier, you know, and they have the pulse of the teaching staff. I was at the TAC meeting, the last meeting, and it was, you know, the teachers, numerous teachers came up to me and said, we're ready to move forward. We're ready to do this, and it's more important, you know, it's important for them with just for the families and the students and to get these other things rolling. So you know, I think MGT has done a wonderful job walking us through this journey, and I think I'm pleased with the results. I hope most people will be. I think it addresses in the flexibility in the plan that has moved forward, has answered and made changes that were necessary and good for the community to help go through with this. So that would be my comments. If you know, sorry, Maria.
That's okay. Echo everything Aaron and Bob said. I think, thank you, MGT, thank you, administrative staff, and, you know, our principals for providing us a lot of information and continuing to answer questions. I know it's a balancing act, and it's something a lot of people are interested in for a variety of reasons. Having been through boundary, you know, reboundary, and it's different, and each family will rise to the occasion as best they can. I had a conversation today with a mom / staff person in the district, and she has several young kiddos who will be in elementary for a few years now. So, and she was just reflecting. She said, we'll be okay. She goes, I have one kiddo who will embrace this with sparkles and rainbows and love it through, you know, just beautifully. And she reflected, she has another kiddo, this will be a little bit of a challenge, and they'll have to walk through it with care. And I think that's, every family's gonna be navigating this. There are those of us who have done it in the past, and we're here, and I have the utmost confidence in our principals. The work that you guys do with your staff every day is amazing, and I know that you guys will welcome all of these new kiddos into your buildings as if they are your own, and this is their new school home, and they will find a place there. So thank you for that.
Okay, no other statements or questions? I'll say all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. And that brings us to the end of our scheduled board meeting tonight, except we're going into closed session. I meant public.
No. We could,
And we will reconvene after closed session. So for the language, if someone wants to make the motion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Kate, thank you.
the board will be convening in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session regarding unsolicited offer or offer to purchase Holton Elementary School.
Second.
All those in favor? Or we should roll call. Dahl?
Aye.
Garza?
Aye.
Gerlach?
Aye.
Powers?
Aye.
Rozowski?
Aye.
Rudy?
Aye.
Bauman? Aye. We are now in closed session.
Mr. President,
Kate?
I'd like to make a motion to reject the unsolicited offer.
I'm gonna go with Brian on that. All
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none.
Mr. President,
Ms. Kate?
I'd like to make a motion for the board to work with the broker used to sell the administrative office building to put together a listing agreement and proposal for the board to review at the next work session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Now I'll do, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr.
Motion to
President.
adjourn.
Aaron, we'll give Brian the second. We are now adjourned.